I think in general in South Africa, we lack awareness. We lack awareness when it comes to basic cybersecurity hygiene. And, by extension, that also dictates how we look at security related to things like cryptocurrencies, etc. They are very well known in stealing cryptocurrency on behalf of the North Korean regime. I think the reasons for that is fairly obvious, right? Because of all the sanctions against North Korea, they need to find alternative incomes. So that was a big modus operandi for the Lazarus group. So that's why it's important for these exchanges, etc., to invest in holistic security. Just having one technical control, such as a offline wallet, doesn't necessitate or doesn't mean that it's going to be secure, because the human element can still be exploited.
Welcome to another episode of ITWeb TV. Today we are joined by Hendrik de Bruin, who is head of SADC Security Consulting at Checkpoint Software Technologies. Today we are going to be talking about the recent cryptocurrency hack that affected a Dubai-based crypto exchange called Bybit. Bybit was hacked of $1.4 billion, which is being said is the biggest cryptocurrency hack to date. Welcome to ITWeb TV, Hendrik.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Just to get it starting, can you tell us what happened with Bybit?
Yes. So essentially, just to take a step back, Bybit, as you mentioned, is a Dubai-based crypto exchange. On the 21st, they got hacked, and as you also mentioned, it appears that about between 1.4 and 1.5 billion dollars worth of cryptocurrency was actually hijacked or stolen from a transfer from one of their cold wallets to one of their online or hot wallets. So that's really the background about the incident itself.
Awesome. And you mentioned about hot and cold wallets. What's the difference between them? I understand they targeted the cold wallets, which are said to be unhackable, if I can put it that way.
So cryptocurrency or crypto exchanges make use of these cold wallets and hot wallets. So essentially, the majority of the exchange's funds will be stored in a offline cold wallet. And the reason we refer to that as a cold or offline wallet is specifically that. It is really an offline or disconnected wallet where the majority of the funds are stolen. And funds are then essentially, or cryptocurrency are then essentially transferred from that cold wallet to a hot wallet, which is basically used for various transactions, etc. So it's essentially an offline safe for your cryptocurrencies. And what appears to have happened in this specific instance is where the transfer was actually made from a cold wallet to the hot wallet. That's where the actual hack occurred. And instead of that funds being transferred to the online or the hot wallet, it was actually transferred to other wallets managed and operated by the cyber criminals.
I understand that Checkpoint, as a cybersecurity firm, has been involved in trying to find out what exactly happened. What have you found out so far from this incident?
So what we have found, so to get back to that point, what Checkpoint does as an organization. So we are one of the world's largest cybersecurity providers. And one of the key areas that we function within is our research site called CPR, Checkpoint Research. And they have mechanisms, tools, and tactics, etc., that they utilize to monitor not only behavior and activities related to cryptocurrency, but in general related to cybersecurity, making use of things like artificial intelligence to spot strange behavior and so forth. And we actually, one of the items that we actually monitor are cryptocurrency transactions. And we actually picked up by analyzing the behavior and those transactions. We actually in real time identified when this specific hack occurred, based on our monitoring, etc.
Okay. So do we know who is the perpetrator? Yes.
So yeah, attribution is oftentimes very difficult to do, especially when it comes to things like cryptocurrencies and so forth, and when these funds are stolen. So we do have a fairly good idea of who it is, and it would appear by, from the evidence that we have gathered that it is the Lazarus Group, a North Korean-based, nation-state operated or supported hacking group called the Lazarus Group.
Interesting. It's not the first time I've heard about this notorious Lazarus Group.
No, definitely
Have
not.
they been involved in other
Yes.
hacks like this?
So I think one of the key things that they are known for nowadays is cryptocurrency. They are very well known in stealing cryptocurrency on behalf of the North Korean regime. I think the reasons for that is fairly obvious, right? Because of all the sanctions against North Korea, they need to find alternative incomes. So that was a big modus operandi for the Lazarus Group, and why they focus on stealing cryptocurrency and things like that. But some of the other notable cases where the Lazarus Group was involved include Sony Pictures. Sony Pictures was hacked back in 2014.
Is it when there was a movie
Yes,
depicting the North Korean?
correct. So they were actually looking at releasing a movie called The Interview, if I recall correctly, and The Interview was was a depiction of the North Korean leader, and they saw that as an insult, which was one of the reasons why they attacked Sony Pictures. The repercussions of that was that a lot of sensitive information was leaked at that point. Scripts related to unreleased movies, plots, etc., was all released during that hack. And then also another one that a lot of individuals may know of, and more specifically the cybersecurity industry will remember this very well, but the WannaCry attack that came out, that was also mainly driven by the Lazarus Group, and abusing various vulnerabilities to make the worm spread.
Interesting. So for a person like you, you have mentioned several bad things that they have done already. Like how difficult is it to trace people like the Lazarus Group?
Yeah, so it very much depends on the vector of attack, the mechanism that they utilized. In this case, when we're looking at things like cryptocurrency, it's often perceived that cryptocurrency is an anonymous way of transacting on the internet.
Yes.
And to an extent, that is true, where you can transact anonymously, but also bear in mind that these cryptocurrencies, they are basically have a ledger, and that ledger is publicly viewable. So that's transparent. So you can really see where a transaction originated from which wallet, where the funds were sent to or received from, the wallet ID, etc. But having the ability to link that wallet ID back to a specific individual, that's where the difficulty comes in, and that's where regulations comes in. So when we look at this specific attack, we can see where a lot of the funds went to. We can identify those wallets, but identifying the individual or organization behind that wallet, that becomes the difficult part. When we look at the actual attack path that was utilized, where it involves things like IP addresses, things like that, they are traceable, but also it very much depends on what mechanisms the attackers used to obfuscate their source, IP addresses, and the likes.
Awesome. Thanks, Hendrik. I just think, so this group is both politically motivated as well as financial, right?
Yes. So I think I would change that slightly. I think they are more financially motivated and politically empowered. I think that would be the correct way of actually putting it. When we look at them as an organization, although the Sony hack specifically was perhaps more politically or ideologically motivated, or hacktivism is the term that we often use. Where if we look at this cryptocurrency attack, that was definitely financially motivated due to the fact that North Korea needs money to sustain itself, and it's very difficult to do normal business if you have the amount of sanctions that's against North Korea at this stage, which is why they are financially, the cyber criminals are, as you mentioned, financially motivated and politically empowered.
So do you guys, like, as Checkpoint, also work with law enforcement agencies to counter such threats?
So yes, we do work with law enforcement of entities when we are involved in terms of incident response, etc.
Okay.
We also make use of our threat intelligence services. In this specific case, Bybit has also involved law enforcement agencies such as Interpol and various other analysts to try and track the funds as far as possible.
Awesome. So now I'm just thinking, like, cryptocurrencies are getting more popular by the day. I think in the US, the president recently announced like a crypto reserve, something like that, and the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies also went up. So do you think with this popularity we are going to continue seeing such attacks like what happened to Bybit?
I would say yes. The cryptocurrency market is still very much, I don't want to say in its infancy stages, but when it comes to things like regulations, it's an evolving industry. And the same with traditionally, if we had our banks, our bricks and mortar banks many years ago, before they established various security protocols, mechanisms to deal with criminality, etc., regulations, etc., they obviously also faced a large onslaught of criminal activity, heists, etc. So they also, exactly, bank robberies, right? So at some point that would have also been an emerging industry, if you can call it that. So it's a question of we'll continue to see attacks on cryptocurrency. We'll continue to see the evolution of these attacks. And it's up to the regulatory bodies, etc., to implement things like KYC, etc., know your customer, in order to prevent some of these. So you can, at the very least, trace these accounts back.
With these amounts, like 1.4, 1.5 billion, like it's a lot of money. Like, how can businesses or cryptocurrency exchanges maybe protect themselves from things like this from happening?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think let's take a step back and talk about this attack once again. Originally, when we started with these concept of cold wallets and multi-signatures and things like that, the idea was, as you mentioned originally, was that the concept was that they are essentially unhackable because they are offline. And what happened in this attack was, by means of either phishing or social engineering, the attackers got access to not specifically Bybit's infrastructure, but actually a third-party supplier, Safe in this case. They got access to their infrastructure. And regardless of the security controls, etc., that Safe could have put in place, they could have been vulnerable to this attack because it's a social engineering attack. It still revolved around a specific individual saying, yes, allow this transaction. And what that specific individual was seeing in front of him was correct. But in the back end, that's where the actual hack occurred. But the hack occurred due to the utilization of an existing user's access. So that's why it's important for these exchanges, etc., to invest in holistic security. Just having one technical control, such as a offline wallet, doesn't necessitate or doesn't mean that it's going to be secure, because the human element can still be exploited. And that human element, if exploited, still has access to that offline cold store, cold wallet, etc.
Okay.
That could be manipulated.
Interesting. If you can maybe just share what is social engineering, maybe to some of our viewers who don't know what a social engineering attack is, and how can you identify that this is social engineering?
Yes.
Okay.
So when we look at cyber attacks, the way I like to look at it is really having two facets to it. The one being a technical component. And if we look at technical cyber attacks, that's really, that's your hackers. That's the guys who's, sitting in a hoodie somewhere in a basement, trying to use technology to facilitate access to a system or information that they shouldn't have access to. That's the one side of cyber attacks or cybercrime. And then the other side is the psychological side. It's the manipulation of a person's psychology to gain access to infrastructure or perhaps sensitive information. So typically a social engineering attack might involve me as an attacker phoning a organization's help desk, saying I'm an individual, a specific individual working within that organization. I forgot my password. Can you please reset my password?
Okay.
That would be the example of a social engineering attack, where I'm creating this preconceived idea that I'm an employee, I need access to my system, please reset my password. And so it involves the psychology of an individual, actual interaction with an individual, rather than the technical means of gaining access.
So it means at the end of the day, people within the organization need to have some kind of knowledge,
Awareness.
Awareness.
And I preach this to all the organizations that I speak to, all the individuals I speak to, is your primary defense against cybersecurity is awareness. We live in South Africa, and as citizens, we've adopted a lot of security awareness when it comes to our physical lives.
Yeah.
When we drive at night, when you approach a red robot, you stop or you slow down. You don't stop, you slow down, you start looking around, looking for the guys, the suspicious guys, right? And then you stop dead when you feel it's safe. And we should practice the same when it comes to digital security rather than physical security. Understand the potential threats that you are exposed to as an individual, and by extension, your organization, right? So understand, have awareness of those threats. Have awareness of indicators of those threats. So when we look at social engineering attacks, oftentimes you'll find that they include a sense of urgency. You'll receive an email saying that I urgently need access to the system, or I urgently need access to these funds. Please pay as soon as possible, or please give me access or send me your password as soon as possible. Those are indicators of a potential social engineering attack. And it's important for individuals to understand those indicators, and how you learn those indicators is through awareness. So in this case, had the staff within SAFE in this case been aware of the potential threats, perhaps they would have practiced additional due care and due diligence to avoid this potential hack or heist.
And these threats are like persistent. They will always be persistent. They come after you until like...
It's yes. So in the industry, we refer to organized or cyber criminal groups or gangs like the Lazarus group as advanced persistent threats.
Okay.
Exactly what you're saying. So they are persistent. It's their business. Like these guys, like the Lazarus group, if there's an opportunity, they'll attack, but they're not opportunists. They are very well funded. They are very well orchestrated, very well managed. They've got a goal that they need to achieve, and that's what they do go after. But the other side of things are obviously the opportunistic cyber criminals. These are the guys that will spot a vulnerability or a opportunity and will run for it. So that's quite often that we see in the smaller cyber criminal activities. And then lastly, the other portion that we see nowadays is hacktivism. Politically motivated, ideologically motivated attacks.
Thanks a lot, Hendrik. Now, maybe lastly, just to look at South Africans, do you think South Africans are aware of these threats? What are you seeing in this market in regards to cybersecurity?
Yes. So I think in general in South Africa, we lack awareness. We lack awareness when it comes to basic cybersecurity hygiene. And by extension, that also dictates how we look at security related to things like cryptocurrencies, etc. South Africans, and this is not a South African problem, it's globally actually it's a problem where we don't see enough awareness, but more so in South Africa. People need to be aware that they, as an individual, are a key part of the security fabric of an organization. If they don't take control of their access, it may lead to an attacker gaining access to infrastructure through their credentials and through their access, right, through them as an individual. So it's important to practice personal cyber hygiene, as well as deploying the technical controls, the firewalls, the endpoint detection and response solutions, etc. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hendrik, for coming through. I don't know, do you have anything that you want to add?
I think maybe what I can just add in terms of bringing this back to South Africa. We spoke about this a little bit earlier around regulations evolving around cryptocurrency, and I think that's something where South Africa has to an extent done some work. The Financial Sector Conduct Authority, the SA Reserve Bank, etc., have gone through some efforts to regulate the industry. So cryptocurrency is now being deemed as a financial product. So there's various rules and regulations around that. But perhaps where we should see some additional efforts is in things like know your customer, getting the regulations in place that people are unable to buy cryptocurrency unless they identify themselves, so it's linked to a specific wallet, right? So that leaves the anonymity part behind and allow law enforcement to track when money is being laundered using cryptocurrency, because you now have a face to that wallet. And I think that's very important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hendrik, for coming to our studio today. It was quite an interesting topic. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as Hendrik has warned, we need to be aware of the cyber threats that are always evolving and are becoming so persistent, like what happened to Bybit. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thank you for watching.